On July 19, 1984, around 10:30 p.m., a man left work and began driving home. The man resided in Dutchess County, New York, located on the western side of the state. As he drove home, he would soon see a strange object up in the sky. The craft began following him and stalking him, and soon the man would have an experience typical of many alien abductees. In this episode, we will cover another story from the 1980s Hudson Valley UFO sightings, the story of Bill. Before diving into this frightening story, it's important to point out that Bill is a pseudonym, as the man in the story wished to remain anonymous. According to the report in UFO Universe, the man in the story was 32 years old and highly educated, working as an engineer producing parts for NASA's Hubble Space Telescope. On the evening of July 19th, 1984, after working a long day, Bill left work and began driving home on Highway I-84. As Bill was driving, he would soon spot a circular, bright object up ahead. Initially, he didn't think much of it and thought as he got closer, he would discover exactly what it was. However, as he got closer, he noticed the object was just hovering, which didn't make much sense to him. Bill then spotted a huge black mass behind the object. He was able to make this out because there was so much light pollution in the sky. Bill kept driving, eventually going by it, and eventually lost track of it. Once out of sight, he kept thinking it must have been a prank. During this time, known as the Westchester Boomerang, there were hundreds of reports of UFOs, as well as multiple stories of alien abductions and alien encounters in the Hudson Valley. This sighting appeared to happen during the peak year of 1984. Despite there being many cases of misidentification, it appears there were a large number of legitimate, credible cases. As Bill continued on his drive, what happened next would confirm what he knew all along. This was no prank. Around 11 p.m., Bill was traveling towards Stormville, New York. The roads were completely empty at this point, with no other cars around. Bill would then spot a large, dark object in a field. He remembered thinking it was a house at first, but as he thought more about it, the field was empty when he drove by it before in the day. In fact, he had drove by it numerous times the past week, and he never saw a home. The object at this time was around 200 yards away in the field, and Bill slowed down to get a better look. Soon the object began to slowly ascend and reached a couple hundred feet in the air. It started heading slowly in Bill's direction, and he soon noticed the radio began to cut in and out. Soon the audio sounded strange, like a cassette player trying to play a tape with a really weak battery. Frightened at this point, Bill got in his car and began speeding away. He hit around 50 miles per hour, and it seemed that he had just lost the craft. He drove on for several minutes, thinking about what he had just seen, when suddenly he spotted a yellow and white glow just over the hill ahead. He continued driving, and when he reached the top of the hill, he could see the craft waiting for him. At this point, it was about 300 feet above the trees ahead, and was lit up with yellow and white lights. Realizing the danger, Bill cut off his lights and shut off his engine. However, it appeared to be too late. The craft would shut off its lights moments after this and began hovering over Bill's car. When the lights went out, Bill could only see a massive black shape heading toward him, but when it got above him, he could see it was a triangle. Underneath the craft, there were several circles in which a white light was flashing. It is believed these circles are tunnels where smaller craft fly up. Bill estimated the ship to be around 300 feet, or the size of a football field. It made no sound the entire time it floated toward him. What happened next would truly frighten Bill, though. He woke up down the hill, around 600 feet from where his car was earlier. Bill never saw the object leave and can't remember what happened after it passed over his car. It was around 11:30 p.m. when it went over his car, and now it was 12:15 in the morning. Bill's neck was very stiff, and he started his drive home. He got home an hour later than expected. He would tell his wife about the sighting, and she was very concerned. That night, things would go from bad to worse for Bill. He woke up in the middle of the night from a dream screaming, "Get away from me! Get away from me!" The nightmares continued for weeks, months, and years. He wasn't sure what it was, but something was terrifying him. He had a new fear of nighttime and refused to drive at night alone, requesting to not work the night shift either. Then in 1987, Bill was fed up with the nightmares and decided to reach out to ufologist Tim Beckley for help. Beckley suggested undergoing hypnosis with a hypnotherapist to uncover what happened that night and unlock the repressed memories. After multiple sessions, the following was revealed. Bill first discussed the aforementioned events. Then, his voice became full of fear and dread, and he started to discuss what happened next. There was someone standing in the road, walking toward Bill. Terrified, Bill asked who it was. The being told Bill not to be scared, as he had been selected. Bill couldn't say for sure, but believed he floated next. The next thing he recalled was lying on a table with 6 beings surrounding him. He's paralyzed, and 2 beings are behind him, with another 2 on each side of the table. Bill described the beings as looking like gray aliens and wearing tight-fitted black and white suits. One of the beings at the head is moving some type of device on the left side of his head. It's like a car vacuum, and the being tells Bill they are looking for something. The sucking machine hurts him, and after several minutes, a being tells Bill they have found the device. The paralysis then ended for Bill, and he was able to get up. One of the first things he noticed was the beings were very short, around 4 feet tall. 2 of them began guiding Bill, and a curious Bill would ask some questions. He asked them where they were from. They responded by saying they were from here. Bill didn't understand the answer, and then asked if he would be let go. The being said they would let him go, but would see him again. They went on to tell Bill that they need us because they have trouble living in our world. The being said they wanted to live here but couldn't. Bill was then told he would forget the experience, but remember it in time. The next thing Bill recalls is waking up in his car. It's important to point out here that after these hypnotic sessions, Bill was able to recall all the events of that night. While these memories might have been hidden by the beings, it's possible too that they were just too traumatic for him. Repressed memory is a controversial area in psychology today. The idea is simply that if an individual experiences intense trauma, the human brain will unconsciously repress the memory. Hypnosis and other methods are used to try and uncover the hidden memories. Many say, though, the therapy around this can create false memories. According to Bill, though, after the sessions, he was able to remember these events clearly. But should we trust his story? There were several reasons this could have occurred. First, many of the characteristics from the event align with other UFO sightings and alien abductions. In addition, many UFO sightings were happening in this area around this time. One interesting piece of evidence is the details around the craft. The white blinking light in a circle has been reported by others. Unless he was an avid UFO fan, that would be a tough detail to know. Bill's nightmares also provide some circumstantial proof as something seemed to frighten him. In addition, Bill lost time and reported seeing the craft before any hypnosis happened. Still, there are some factors that make the story doubtful. For one, he didn't use his real name. While it's not a huge reason to doubt the story, it's tough to absolutely believe a story if you don't know the real person. Also, many of the memories from the abductions were gained through hypnosis. This will lead many to question whether they were planted. One final point is Bill reached out about his experience after watching Bud Hopkins, a ufologist, on TV. Was Bill a UFO fan? It seems very possible he might have read some of Hopkins' books or others and been able to learn the common characteristics of these abductions. This is tough to know for certain, though. Human memory tends to be a tough and controversial subject in general. We know that people perceive events differently and often have false memories of things. This is probably most prominent today with the Mandela effect, a phenomenon where massive amounts of people misremember an event. One interesting thing about Bill's case, if true, is that the beings seemed to have abducted him before and put in an alien implant. Multiple abductions for the same person are not uncommon in these types of cases. It's not known if he was visited again in the future, but it seems likely that he was. If so, let's hope Bill's experience is more pleasant and he was able to move on with his life.